Okay, I'm going to show you how to make the easiest sock that has a heel and has a toe and a toe closure. I'm going to show you how to make the easiest sock you can with a heel and a toe, with short row heel, short row toe. Alright? And here's how you're going to do it. You need to get your basics, so you need to watch my how to calculate what loom you need. Then you need to go in and you need to decide what length you want the cuff. I'm going to do a mid-calf, and so what I do is I measure from my ankle bone to my mid-calf, or however long I want, and I write that number down. Mine was 6 inches. Now, what you need to do is you need to go in and measure how many stitches are there, how many rows there are per inch, and I got 10. So it means I'm going to do 60 rows of like a rib stitch. And rib stitch is easy. It's usually either knit 1, purl 1. You decide how you want to do this. You can actually knit 3, purl 2 if you have 5, and it's divisible by 5. Okay, so I want to do 60 rows of my rib stitch. Then I want to do my short row heel, which I'm going to do a triple wedge heel to show you how to do that. And how you figure out how much you need to decrease down is a trick, okay? And what you're going to do is, I'm actually going to use the 44 peg loom. So I'm going to do 44, divide that by 2, okay? And that's going to be 22. And that's half my loom, and that's where I work. I work 22 pegs for my heel area and my toe area, okay? I work those 22 pegs. Well, you need to find out what a third of 22 is, and I believe it's 7.3, all right? So you take that 22 and you divide it by 3, and I'm pretty sure it is 7.3, okay, because I've worked this loom before. So what I like to do is round down and use 7. So I'm going to be decreasing down to 7 because that 0.3 means I round down. So if it's a 0.4, round down. If it's anywhere from a 0.4 below, round down. If it's 0.5 or above, round up. Okay? Remember your math in school. Okay, so I'm going to be decreasing down to 7. Alright? So I'm going to take half my loom and I'm going to decrease down to 7. Alright? And I'm going to keep that in mind when I do my heel and my toe and when I'm doing my triple wedge. Okay? So the next thing I need to keep in mind is that the heel is going to end right here, all right? And you'll see a change. You'll see sometimes your heel will show that it's going to go out and it's going to indent in, okay? You'll see it. So what you want to do is you kind of want to measure in general from there to where you start to see your toes start. And it looks like it's about 4.5. We'll see. 4.5. So about 4.5 to 5 inches, okay? So approximately, if I'm doing anywhere from 4.5 to 5 inches, and I have 10 stitches per inch, it'll be anywhere from 40 to 50 rows, probably 45 rows. So I need to know that after I do my short row heel, I'll make a note of myself down to 7 pegs. I'm going to do approximately, I would say 45 rows for my foot. Then I'm going to do my short row toe in 7 pegs. And I'm going to do a bind off whip stitch close. Okay? Alright. That's how you do kind of your basic math. You follow the video that I have for how to figure out what loom you need. Okay, mine it says it need a 36 peg loom, but I don't feel like digging my 36 peg loom out. So I'm just going to work with my stitches per inch and have a sock that's going to be like an example, and it's going to be a little bigger. Not a big deal for me. I've been making a whole bunch of examples for this book. But anyway, I would be using generally a 36 peg loom in my worsted weight yarn here, but I'm going to use my 44 peg, okay, that I originally calculated for like DK weight, but I don't have any of those yarns out. But what I'm going to do is show you how to get started to doing the easiest sock that you can. Alright, if you watch the video, you'll have known the quick cheat on how to do the mold if you're doing a round loom. Just keep in mind half, third, and that gets you. If you don't want to do that, all right, you take and you stick your heel, the widest part of your heel, up. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you'll notice that if you move it over a little, it does cover 7 pegs. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You see that? That's a trick. So if you don't want to figure it out, you don't want to do the math, stick your mold up there. As I said, this thing's brilliant. Stick your mold up there, calculate it, get it as close between these 2 pegs where it'll cover just enough pegs, all right? And it usually works out, all right? So there's your cheat. If you don't want to do the math, your mold. Go to your mold. Always go to your mold. Okay. Here's how it goes. I usually do an E-wrap cast on. Nothing special. You can do a chain cast on if you want. You can do a double E-wrap with a toss over cast on, but I'm just going to do an E-wrap cast on. I'm not going to do anything special, mostly because I can go in and tighten my E-wrap cast on to the tightness that I want. So it's a preference, but because I'm going mid-calf, I kind of want it to be a little stretchier, which is the other reason why I'm kind of using a 44 peg loom. Now, if you're going above mid-calf and you're going to a knee and you are not a slender girl like me, I have a very difference between my knee and my calf, and then going back down to my ankles are smaller and everything. I'm going to be doing a video on how to do the knee highs. Okay. Alright, now, I don't have my actual hook on me. So you do an E-wrap cast on, and then we're going to show how to do a rib stitch. Now you have several options. You can do a 3x2, which is knit 3, purl 2, if you are working divisible by 5. I'm working divisible by 4, so I'm going to knit 2, purl 2. I find the more separation you have in your rib stitch, so you can do a 2x2, which is a knit 2, purl 2, or you can do a 3x2, which is a knit 3, purl 2, or you can do a 3x3, which is knit 3, purl 3, depending on what you're divisible by. And what you do is, if you want it to be 6 total, a total set of 6, you take your number of pegs, you divide it by that number, okay? So whatever your set is going to be your total set. So if it's a 3x3, you know you're going to need to divide all your pegs by 6 to see if it works. That's just a general rule of thumb. But I find that 1x1s are not quite as elastic as doing more like a 2x2 or a 3x2 or a 3x3. My personal opinion. So I would suggest that. But you can do a 1x1, which is a knit 1, purl 1. So let me go get my hook, and I will show you how to get started with a rib stitch. Again, this is the easiest sock you can make. Alright. Okay. Time to start my rib stitch. I'm going to do a 2x2. So I'm going to knit 2, purl 2, all the way around. So knit 2, purl 2, all around. Okay? And this is your 2x2 ribbing, and you're going to do this all the way around. Okay? And you're going to continue this for your calculated number of rows you want your cuff to be. So I'm going to do mine for 60 rows. Alright, so I'm going to do this knit 2, purl 2 in a circle for 60 rows. Okay, let's go ahead and pause the video and get your cuff done to the length that you want. Just measure as far up the leg as you think you want the sock to be. If you want to be mid-calf, measure to there. If you want it to be, you know, just an ankle sock, you measure to there. Alright, and then you do the calculation of number of rows per inch, okay? So, go ahead, pause the video, and get your cuff done. It's pretty self-explanatory on doing a rib stitch. So again, you continue the knit 2, purl 2 all the way around, and you just keep going and going and going until you get 60 rows, or you get a total of approximately 6 inches. It's going to be difficult because your stitches are going to be stretched out, so the calculations are going to be a little bit more important. Okay, So pause the video, get your cuff done, and then when we come back, we'll be ready to do our really simplified heel. You're only decreasing, so the triple wedge is the simplest heel you can do. We're going to do a double wedge toe. So that's kind of what to expect. If you want to kind of get an idea of what that is, you can go to my video on how to do a double wedge heel, and you can do a double wedge toe. It's the same process, and so you can kind of see and look forward to that if you want to go in and have that individually brought out to you as to how to do that. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, get your cuff done, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I have completed my 60 rows, my 6 inches worth, as you can see. And I don't know, I know I started out using a worsted weight, and I actually chose to go in and switch up and use my Elise stretch yarn, and I actually get it from either Russia or the Ukraine. I special ordered it in from eBay, and it's a stretch yarn for socks. And in all honesty, I'm actually doing some yarn bulking, and I have a video for that. I'm doing yarn bulking so that it's not a fingering weight, it's a little thicker for the 3/8 inch gauging. And what I find it's doing is it's more likely to be put on your foot and stay where it's supposed to, and it's not going to come off. So it has a nice snug feel to it as I've been working with it. Now, we are to our heel, okay, and you want to try to find your halfway point. Well, since I'm using the 44 peg loom, 44 divided by 2, of course, is 22. So you go in and you count. Here's your starting peg. Count 22 over them. Place your stitch marker. All right. Now, if you do 22 divided by 3, I think it's like 7.3 or something, I'm going to do decrease down to 7. And I'll show you how that's done. So I'm going to decrease down to 7, and then we'll go from there. All right. So what I'm going to do is, this is the easiest heel you can do. All right. There's no increasing, it's only decreasing. So it really is the easiest heel you can do. So what you want to do is you want to knit your way over to just before your stitch marker. Okay. Okay, here's your stitch marker. We're stopping just before it. Alright, you're going to wrap and turn that next peg, and then you're going to work your way back and stop just before your starting peg. Okay? Okay, here's just before our starting peg. And you're going to wrap from behind the peg to the front. Alright, then you're going to knit your way over to just before your last wrap and turn. Increase my yarn. Alright. And there's your last wrap and turn, so we're stopping just before it. Wrap and turn. So you're going to continue this where you stop just before your last wrap and turn, and you wrap and turn that peg, and you're going to continue this until you have 7 single stitches between your wraps and turns. Okay, so I'm going to show you one last wrap and turn. I'm going to tell you pause the video and get yourself down to 7 single stitches between your wrap and turn stitches, and you will see what that looks like. I'll show that here in just a second. And there's our last wrap and turn. Here's the one just before it, and wrap and turn. Alright. Alright, then you knit your way over, wrap and turn until you got 7 single stitches. And I'll kind of show the last couple of rows before we complete our 7 single stitches, but go ahead and pause the video and wrap and turn yourself down to where you need to be according to your calculations, depending on the loom you're using. Remember, it's take your number of pegs, divide by 2, then divide by 3. And then when you divide by 3, that's how many you decrease down to. Okay? Okay. Let me show you the last couple of wraps and turns. I just wrapped and turned, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wrap and turn, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as your last wrap and turn. Alright, so this is your first wedge. We're doing a triple wedge heel, and this is your first wedge. Okay, so what you want to do now is you want to start with the peg that you finished with, and then you're going to knit all the way around. Okay, and start wrapping and turning again, and I'll show you how that works. So start with the peg you finished with and knit all the way around. Okay, and when you get to the wraps and turns, you'll knit both together, and you may have to do it a single at a time if you need to. Okay, so after you've knitted those 2 over, then you're going to single knit your way around. We're back to our starting point, and then we're going to knit both those loops over. So both those wraps and turns will go over. Again, you may need to do them one at a time, that's okay. And then knit your way to just before your stitch marker, and you wrap and turn. And what this does is it sets you up to start doing your next wedge. Okay, so you knit your way over and stop just before your stitch marker, and then you will wrap and turn and start to head back the other direction. You wrap and turn, and then you're going to be starting your second wedge. So then you'll knit your way over to just before your starting point. Okay, there's your starting point. Wrap and turn, and knit your way over to just before the last wrap and turn, and you're going to do the same process as you just did on your first wedge with the second wedge. It goes exactly the same, okay? Nothing has changed there. So I'm going to tell you to pause the video and complete your second wedge. Here's your last wrap and turn, and work your way over. Then knit one more. There's your last wrap and turn, So go ahead and pause the video and complete your next wedge. Okay, and then I will show you how to do the third wedge, which is basically a repeat of this. And then we'll be pretty much ready to start doing the actual foot area. And then I'll show you what you need to do when you go in and you start to do your toe area. Okay? So go ahead and pause the video, get your second wedge done, and then we will go over how to start off your third wedge and go from there. Okay. I finished up my second wedge, and I've got 7 single stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, between my wraps and turns, just like we did on the first one. And we're going to start with the peg we finished with, and we were going to just knit all the way around. remember, when you get to the wrap and turn pegs, you will toss both loops over to get it back down to single stitches. Now, you have two options. You can stick with just the 2 wedges if you don't have much of a heel or something. Let's say you have a kind of shallow heel, you can stick with just the 2. But let's say you have a more predominant heel, you may want to do 3 wedges. Okay, I'm doing 3 wedges. I don't exactly have a real predominant heel, but I don't exactly have a shallow heel either. Alright, and if you have a really rounded heel, then you probably would want to do this anyway. But it doesn't matter. You can either choose to do 2 or 3 wedges. Okay. Okay, we're back at our starting point. And now we want to get prepped to start our 3rd wedge. So we're going to go ahead and work our way just before our stitch marker so we can start wrapping and turning. Okay, now we just want to work our way to just before our stitch marker. And at this point we'll be starting our 3rd wedge. And again, it goes exactly like our 1st and 2nd wedge. You're just repeating it a 3rd time. I'm sure if you wanted to repeat a wedge almost 6 times, you could make like a little pillow donut. Okay, so there's your stitch marker. You wrap and turn, and you get started on your 3rd wedge. So go ahead and pause the video and get your 3rd wedge done, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to set up the loom to where you're ready to do the foot. Okay, so pause the video, get your 3rd wedge done, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we'll need to finish up our last wedge, and then we'll need to do some calculations to figure out our foot. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the process we've been doing, where we knit our way around like we have been, and you act like you're going to start a 4th wedge, but what you're going to do is you're just going to knit all the way around, and that basically gets you to square one. Okay, so you're knitting the 2 together here, and you're going to knit your way around. We're back at our starting point, and you're going to knit the 2 stitches together to get it back to one stitch on a peg. Alright. Okay, at this point what you want to do is just knit your way around to the starting point, and this puts you at square one and ready to go about starting your foot area with a stockinette stitch, which is just straight knit one row after the other. But we need to calculate how many rows we're going to need. That's what comes next. Okay, we're at our starting point, and at this point you will be doing a knit stitch all the way around, but you have your 3 wedges, 1, 2, 3, and so you have your heels set up. Alright, we need to figure out our foot area. So basically what we've just done is we've done to here. Alright, and we need to actually go a little further because we're going to do a double wedge toe. It's not going to take up quite as much area as a regular short row toe. So instead of stopping here, you're going to stop more along the lines of here. Alright, so what we want to do is we find the middle of that curve there, I think. And you're going to measure to basically the top of what you'll see as your pinky toe. And I've got approximately 5 inches. And it was 10 stitches per inch, so I'll need to do 50 rows for my foot. Okay, that kind of gives you an idea. Also, if you don't want to try to do a calculation, you can go in and you can just keep doing stockinette stitch, keep up with track of your rows, and when you pull the sock out and when you stretch the sock out and it touches that area or somewhere in here, you know you're ready to start your toe. Okay, so that's kind of a cheat, and I'll show you that process too when we get there. So right now I'm going to do 50 rows of stockinette, which is just where you knit in the round, round and round and round you go. So at this point you just knit, and you knit for how many rounds you calculated for. So you're going to knit round and round, and I'm going to go for 50 rows, and yours may be different. But what we'll do is, after I do my 50 rows, I'll show you how to kind of check and see if it's long enough without having to do the math. Okay, I like to show not doing the math if at all possible, and what that works out like. So go ahead and start doing stockinette rows, and I'll do my 50, and then I'll show you how to go from here. As you can see, I have completed my sock to the point where I'm ready for the toe. And if you liked the wedge process, we're going to do a double wedge toe rather than a triple wedge like we did over here at the heel. We're going to do a double wedge toe, and we're going to do a bind off whip stitch closure for the toe. As I said, this is the easiest possible sock that includes a heel and a toe finish. Okay, now you have one of two choices. You can do your double wedge on the same side that you did the heel, but keep in mind, when you do your whip stitch, you will have a seam that's on top. Now, if you choose to want to have a seam on the bottom and make it look like you did a fancy closure where you can't see where you closed it because it's always going to be on the bottom of the foot, then you want to do it on the opposite side. You did the heel. Okay, and you do not feel the sew up, because what this seam does is it falls right in between that space where your toes and your ball of your foot are. Okay, so you don't ever feel it. And if you sew it up as smooth as I sew up my whip stitch, you definitely don't feel it or notice it. So you have two choices. You can do it on this half, which means you just go back and follow the heel like you did, but you only do 2 wedges rather than 3. And if you want to do it the way I'm going to do it, where the seam is underneath so that you don't see it, you're going to do it on the opposite half, and I'm going to show how that's done. So what we want to do is we want to knit all the way around and stop just before the last peg. Okay? Okay. Stopping just before the last peg. Now, you're working still the half of the loom, but you know that this stitch marker is for peg 22, but when we go to work the other direction, we need to stop just before this peg, because this is this half, while that is that half. Okay, so wrap and turn, and knit your way over till just before that stitch marker, okay? And then we'll start our wraps and turns down. Okay, we're stopping just before that stitch marker, which is right there. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap and turn and knit your way over till just before the last wrap and turn. And you're going to wrap and turn down to 7 pegs in the middle of your wrap and turns, just like you did on the previous wedging. And you're just basically going to be doing the same exact thing. It's just going to be on the back half rather than the front half where you did your heel. Alright, so there's our wrap and turn. Stop just before it. Wrap and turn. And knit your way over. So I'm going to tell you to pause the video and get your wrap and turn down to 7 single stitches between your wraps and turns, and then I'll show you how to go from there. I'll show you one last wrap and turn so you know what you're doing. Alright, stopping just before that last wrap and turn. You wrap and turn and work back the other direction. So continue just like you did with these, except you're working this half of the loom rather than the other half. Get it down to 7 pegs, and then I will show you how to go about and set up to do the next wedge. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's your wraps and turns in between. Alright, now it's time to start with that last peg you finished with. And now you're going to knit your way around. And then when you get to your wraps and turns, of course, you knit both those 2 stitches together. Then you knit all the way around to the other side. Then you knit, of course, the 2 stitches together. And now you're kind of back around where you started, but now you're ready to actually start your next wedge. So what you'll do is you'll then knit your way over to just before your last peg on the end here. Then you will wrap and turn and knit your way over to just before your stitch marker peg. There's your stitch marker peg. There's your next one. You're going to wrap and turn it. And now you're going to just repeat your wedge. So now you're just going to wrap and turn down to 7 again, like you just did previously, to complete your second wedge. And then we will be ready to start our next section where we'll be officially finishing up and binding off and that kind of thing. So I'll show you another wrap and turn so you know what you're doing. So you wrap and turn and knit your way over and wrap and turn and knit your way over, okay? So you want to get that down to 7, alright? And then when you get that down to 7, then the next thing you want to do is basically repeat what we just did, but you're going to just do it all the way to the start without starting another wedge. So go ahead and pause the video and complete this wedge down to 7 or whatever your calculation was, and then we'll go from there and I'll show you how to finish up the sock. Okay, here we are down to 7 single stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see, yeah. Okay, now what we want to do, start with the peg you finished with and knit your way around just like you would to set up for a third wedge, but we're not going to do a third wedge. So what we're going to do is we're going to knit those 2 together, then knit your way around, knit your 2 together. I'm going to push these up so they're a little easier. Okay, and after you knit your 2 together, you're just going to knit right on to your starting point, okay? And when you get to your starting point, you're ready to bind off, okay? So at this point, you're ready to do a simple, regular bind off. And I'll show you how that's done. And mostly what you're trying to do is create a nice pretty chain that you can see easily to sew the sides together. Okay, so what you want to do is you knit peg 1, knit peg 2, take that second stitch, move it back to peg 1, toss the bottom loop over and move it over. Then you're going to knit that second peg, take it back to the first, toss the bottom loop over, move it over 1. Knit that second peg, take it back 1, toss the bottom loop over, and move it over. You're going to do this all the way around, and don't do it super tight, okay, because you're going to need to be able to get a needle through there. Alright, so pause the video and bind your sock off, and then we will be ready to sew up our toe and have a completed sock. Alright, so pause the video, get your bind off done, have a needle ready to go, and we will be going from there. Okay, let me show you the last couple of bind offs because there's something I do that's probably a little different. Alright, knit that stitch, move it back 1, toss the bottom loop over, and then what I like to do is go in and hunt down my first chain, which is basically right here, add it to on top of that peg and knit it over and wrap and knit over, and then snip your end and pull your tail through. Okay, now it is now time to sew your toe up, and I'm going to go ahead and stretch my knit stitches out all nice and neat. Alright, and as you can see, when we go to sew it up, you aren't going to see it on the top. Isn't that nice? Okay, so let's get you a beautiful clean whip stitch that you're not even going to know is there. Alright, gonna thread my needle. Okay, now you have all these beautiful chains on your very edge. We'll see if I can get them close to the camera. Come on, focus in. Anyway, you see these beautiful chains, alright? If I can get it to focus. There it is. Okay, you're going to follow those chains. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to find your first chain here. First one you see, and you're going to stick the needle through both sides of the chain. Alright? You see that? Stick it through both sides of the chain, and this thing is not wanting to focus. Okay, so you're going to stick it through and pull through. Then what you're going to do is you're going to come over here and you're going to find your first chain over here, and you're going to stick it through the bottom half and through the middle. Alright, and pull through. Alright, then you're going to go directly across and find your next chain, which is right here, right there. Pull through, and then you're going to come down here and you're going to find your next chain, and you're going to stick it through. So you're going to stick it through the bottom, through the top. Alright, make sure I have that accurate. Actually, I think it's that one. Keep up with your chains, you don't want to get this offset. Okay, now kind of go in and tighten a little bit and then pull. Alright, now you want to hunt down your next chain, which looks like that's it right there. So it's bottom to top, send through, go to the next one, bottom to top. Okay, then go to the next chain, bottom to top, and go to the next chain, bottom to top, go to the next chain, bottom to top, go to the next chain, bottom to top, go to the next chain, bottom to top. Once you get a few done, then what you want to do is you want to pull on it kind of snug. Then what I like to do is go in and pull on it this way. Alright, pull on it this way and then pull on it this way. Alright, and if you go in and you feel it, it should feel nice and flat. Alright, sorry, I'm working at my dining room table. Okay, so you want to go in and you want to do, say, like 5 times through the corresponding chains, and then you want to pull it tight, then pull it the 2 directions to loosen it up and even it out, but it gets it nice and flat. Alright, which is what you want. You don't want to feel this. So if you get it bulky, you might end up feeling it, which is why you want to get these chains as neat and clean as possible when sending that needle through. And this is really the easiest toe closure. I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to pull it and get that section done. You don't want to wait until the end to do that, okay? You want to kind of do it as you go along. Alright. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to pull it where you see all the stitches go tight. Then what you want to do is you want to pull it this way, and you want to pull it this way. Alright, snug it up where it's all uniform, and then you want to tug it this way and then tug it this way. Alright, that also keeps your stretch in, but then when you go in and you feel it on the inside, it feels very smooth, and where you're not going to notice it because it's very clean and smooth. Alright, and this is what it starts to look like, and this is going to be on the bottom of the foot, so you know, ain't nobody going to see this. Okay, so send through, and you just keep doing this until you reach the end. Pull it, and pull it this way, pull it this way. Almost done. And when you get to those end ones is where it can get a little challenging. Okay. And then you should have like an end chain here. Go ahead and pull it. And then pull it out and pull it down. Okay, like we've been doing. Okay. And feel it, make sure it's doing what you want, which is nice and smooth. Okay, and then we have this one little area. We're going to stick the needle through. Okay. And then we're going to stick it through the sock and we're going to tie it off. But there is this beautiful, neat whip stitch. So even if somebody did see it, it's going to be really nice and neat. Alright? Alright. So we're going to send it through now. So we're going to turn our sock. Going to reach up in there. Okay. You can go ahead and pull on it. And you're going to send that needle through. Okay, you're going to grab it. And then you're going to turn the sock inside out. Okay. Make sure you get that whole thing pulled through, which looks like it did. Alright, turn it inside out. And it should look beautifully smooth on this side too. Alright, and then at this rate you're going to go in and you're going to kind of weave it in, and then you can snip it. You're going to go in and weave the ends in. So that nobody sees those ends. I always like to stretch it as I go. Alright. So basically you're going to weave your ends in, snip your ends. Okay. Snip your ends. And then you are done. You have what I call the easiest sock that is a heel and a toe with a closure. Alright, so there's the inside. Okay, we'll flip it right side out so you can see it. Okay, so this is what your sock looks like. And I'm most likely going to be wearing it folded down. So there is your sock, and there is your whip stitch on the bottom. Alright, so that when you wear it, you don't see a thing. See? You don't see anything. Isn't that nice? Well, that is how you make the easiest sock with a heel and a toe that isn't a tube sock. So this is the easiest sock that you can possibly make. Trust me on this. That has a heel and a toe.